Okay, hello again. In the last video, we talked about reductive materialism, or also called the identity theory of mind, where the point is that mental states are identical to physical states, and we can reduce our vocabulary of mental states to a description of physical states, because this is what mental states in reality are on a lower level, right? In the same way, like we can reduce the talk of temperature to a talk of kinetic energy of molecules, right? Another form of materialism is eliminative materialism. This is even stronger, goes further than the previous one, because eliminative materialism seeks to eliminate, to remove all mentalistic vocabulary. So it does not accept, the identity theory accepts that there is a talk of mental states, and this talk of mental states is legitimate, but it would be mistaken to say that mental states are something special. They are just a kind of physical state. This is what the previous theory said, the identity theory. Eliminative materialism would say there is no way to talk about mental states because there are no mental states. Mental states, the vocabulary itself is misleading. There is nothing. There is not one thing that is properly described with the words mental state. Okay? And we need to get rid of this vocabulary. We need to stop talking about mental states. And only then will we have some clarity about how the mind works. Similar cases of the elimination of misleading vocabulary are known from the history of science, right? This has happened multiple times, that we used to have vocabulary to describe concepts that later turned out to not even be concepts. There was no such thing as what we described. For example, phlogiston. At some point in the history of science, there was the idea that when things burn with a flame, what happens is that all things in them have phlogiston, which was supposed to be the flame material. Phlox in ancient Greece is the flame. So they have a flame material, and when you ignite something, this flame comes out, and this flame material coming out is what you perceive as the flame. Now, phlogiston was the stuff that was supposed to be burning when something catches fire. And people thought that this is a thing. Phlogiston is in the things, and it gets ignited and then it burns, and is more in some things than other things. So, petrol has a lot of phlogiston, or wood, dry wood has a lot of phlogiston, while water doesn't have any phlogiston. This is why you cannot ignite water. This was a bad theory, because there is no such thing. And there you can easily think of experiments to prove that there is no phlogiston. For example, if something was burning away, then a burnt piece of wood should be lighter than a not burnt piece of wood, because through the burning the phlogiston would go away, and then the wood would be lighter. This is not the case. If you weigh a piece of wood that has been burnt, it's heavier because of the oxidation, right? It has more oxygen now than it had before. And so this is the reason why finally phlogiston was abandoned, and people described then fire in terms of oxidation, and the whole thing with phlogiston was suddenly not there anymore. It's not like we learned to describe phlogiston in terms of some other theory like we did with temperature, when we described it as kinetic energy. We still talk of temperature. It's not wrong to talk of temperature. It's just an unnecessary concept, but it describes something real. While phlogiston describes nothing real. It's just a mistake. Or cosmic ether. The idea was that, you have light coming from the sun, and light comes in waves, as we know. One of the possible descriptions of light is that light is waves, electromagnetic waves. So now if you have waves need a medium. You cannot have a wave of seawater without the seawater. you need to have a medium. You need to have the seawater in order for the seawater to be in the form of waves. Or when you talk about sound waves, you need the air to transport the sound waves. Without the air, you cannot have a sound wave. So then if I say light, the sunlight, is in reality waves coming from the sun, where's the medium? How does the sunlight propagate if from the earth to the sun are 150 million kilometers with nothing in them, with no medium? All this void, how do the waves get propagated in the void? Waves of what? Because when we talk of waves, we imagine, waves of seawater. If there is no seawater, how can there be a wave, right? So this is something that troubled scientists about the idea that light is waves. And then they postulated, okay, there is something. There is a kind of seawater, very thin, that fills the whole universe. And all the waves of light are waves in this medium, which they call the ether. So this is material that filled the void between stars, not stars, there's a typo here, and in which light waves would propagate. And later they found out that this actually does not exist. So there is no such ether. Light can propagate in vacuum, for whatever reason. That is not our problem now, because light is also particles and whatever the physicists know about how light propagates in vacuum, it's not our thing now. The thing is that the ether that was postulated as a solution to this problem, it doesn't exist. And so it would be wrong again to say, the ether can be explained in terms of particles or something. It's not. The ether cannot be explained. It doesn't need to be explained because it simply doesn't exist, right? And so eliminative materialism tries to do the same with mental states. The progress of science replaced these wrong concepts entirely with better concepts. It eliminated phlogiston and the cosmic ether because knowledge about oxidation in chemistry and the propagation of light in the vacuum did not anymore require these wrong explanatory concepts. In the same way, the eliminative materialist wants to get rid of the supposedly misleading and wrong mentalist terms in which we describe the mind. So he would say, all these terms of describing the mind are wrong. We should not describe it in this way. We should get rid of these ways of describing the mind. And again, this does not seem plausible to most of us, right? Most of us do think that mental states are something real that needs to be explained rather than eliminated. If I told you that your thoughts are as wrong as a concept, the concept of thoughts, of mental states, is as wrong as the concept of ether or phlogiston, you would say, no, I have these thoughts. I cannot say that they don't exist. People are mistaken about having thoughts. It doesn't seem to be the case. Again, introspection is problematic, but it does seem that eliminative materialism is perhaps going too far here, right? Okay, let's stop here. This is a very short explanation of this, and then we will continue and talk about something, Mary's room argument, which is a very interesting argument, but it's not directly connected to this, so let's cut the video at this point. Thank you.